Welcome to True Stories from District 6 Toastmasters, a podcast dedicated to showcasing our fantastic membership throughout the district. I am Chuck Burnett, serving this year as Division A Director, and I'm working on behalf of this podcast under the leadership of our District 6 Public Relations Manager, Troy Dukart. And with me today is Rachel Lueth. She goes by her nickname, Ray. Ray is with the Hutchinson Toastmasters 2 Club, and Ray had reached out to me some weeks ago and offered to tell her unique story about her involvement in Toastmasters and the support that she's gotten from her club. And so I'm really excited to talk with her today. And so with that, without any further delay, hello, Rachel. Welcome to True Stories from District 6.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about talking with you this morning.
Yeah, same here. Well, I always like to start these episodes by just asking a little bit about your journey and what led you to join Toastmasters in the first place.
Sure, yeah. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get into talking about my story, because my story
Sure.
is actually what led me to joining Toastmasters. After going through some of the things that I went through, I wanted to be able to articulate myself, and I wanted to market myself a little bit better and also meet new people and be able to tell my story openly. And I eventually found Toastmasters, and I haven't looked back since. It's been a great opportunity.
Well, that's great. You know, I did a little research before today's conversation. I noticed that Hutchinson Toastmasters 2 has a long history. I believe you're on your
Yeah.
22nd year, if I can do
That,
the math right.
yeah, that sounds about right. Yep.
Yeah. And well, it's got a unique name, Toastmasters 2, which leads me to believe there must be a Hutchinson Toastmaster 1.
There is another Hutchinson Toastmasters. They are in one of the corporations that's large in Hutchinson. They're the 3M Club. So
Yeah.
we identify ourselves by Hutchinson Toastmasters too.
Okay. So you are a community club. You're open
Mhm.
to general membership. I
Correct.
noted that your location is typically the Keller Williams Realty location, but do you
Yep.
still meet there, or are you meeting
That
online?
That's actually a great question. We just recently started meeting there. We used to be in one of the other larger corporations in their meeting room for many, many years until the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And then we were all online. And after a while, we decided we wanted to try the hybrid option. And Keller Williams, it is operated by one of our members, and he opened it up and said, let's try the meeting here. And now we have a hybrid option, which is fantastic for those actually like myself, where I work from home now due to the pandemic. So it's sometimes difficult to get to the meetings when I have to be back at home by a certain time. Sometimes it actually just works better for other people's lifestyles. Hutchinson is the closest club for me, even though I don't live in Hutchinson. It's actually about a 35-minute drive. So meetings at 7 a.m. can be a little difficult. And it's my son's first year in preschool. Today's actually his
Okay.
first day of preschool, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
But uh, with that, he gets on the bus right at the same time that our meetings start. So it's nice to have that hybrid option.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that as well. Your meeting time is quite early. I
It
know
is,
I'm
yes.
familiar with other clubs that start at 8. I can think of another club that starts at 7:30, but I think maybe your club has the record starting at 7. But it sounds like it works out pretty
It
well
works.
for you. Yeah,
It does, because there's so many people that start work right at that, 8:30 hour, and we get the meeting done and people get off to work, and it seems to be great. We do have a couple people that it sometimes deters them, but we have, especially ever since we went hybrid,
yeah,
it's been it's been really great from that perspective, because even if you maybe aren't up and ready for the day, you can still log into your computer from home.
sure.
So that's definitely been an advantage. But in all reality, it's once a week, or if you can't make it every single week, that's okay too. And so it might be early, but it gets your day going, it gets your day started, and you're energized for the day. So
Yeah.
it's great.
No, actually, I think it's very appealing to have a club that starts at 7. I'm a morning person myself, so I think my brain is functioning better at this time of the day
Yeah.
than at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away time from your family once you get home from work either. And that's one nice thing that is attractive to some people as well.
Yeah. Well, one more question about the hybrid aspect of your meetings. So how does it work? You have somebody that obviously needs to show up at that location well before 7 and set it up. Are they using cameras that you've acquired to make that happen?
So right now we're still in the beginning phases of having it work flawlessly, but there is a computer on the lectern, and so when there is the primary person speaking up front, the people at home can view the person standing at the lectern, and then when it comes time for speeches, if the person at home is the one speaking, essentially they turn the laptop around so then the person speaking can see the audience.
Okay.
In a perfect world, we will be working on getting like a TV type display so that there can always be all of the different Zoom cameras or different people logged in displayed at the location, and then also one camera that's displaying the audience at all times, because we've only been doing this hybrid for, I want to say it's been about a month, and I've always stayed home during the
Right.
initial hybrid, due to some job changes and just taking care of my kiddo for now. I have not been able to attend in person yet, but
Right.
it seems to work pretty well. And, we're going to be making changes and try to make it better and better each time.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Certainly hybrid meetings, I think, are the long range goal for all of our clubs. And
Yeah,
this is a year of transition, so it's going to happen at some time
absolutely.
or another for all of us. So I'm
Absolutely.
wonderful to hear that your club is the pioneer for hybrid.
Yeah, I like that. The one last thing I want to add about our club that's unique is that I don't know the record, and none of the clubs seems to actually know the record, but I do believe we hold the record for having the egg the longest of all the clubs out there. We still hold the egg. We have had the egg for over a year now, and I do know for sure that we do hold the record for the club that went the longest to get the egg. We did that many, many years ago. Some of our club members that are still here today, Robert Anderson is one of them. He drove several hundred miles almost to the Canadian border to go get it. And that was quite a feat. But this time we have the egg again, and we have had it for over a year now. And I'm sure it's quite possible that it's mostly thanks to our distance away from the Twin Cities, but also thanks to the pandemic because everyone's been virtual. But
That
we
is
have
just
it.
yeah, that is just a great topic. I don't know how well that is known throughout the district about the egg competition, but maybe that's a good topic for a future podcast. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I we'll just leave it at my being amazed that you still have that record. So that you're the proud owners of that egg for the time being.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. Well, as we kind of alluded to at the start of the meeting, you have a very special journey in Toastmasters, and I think it takes a lot of courage to talk about it. But Toastmasters has certainly been an important element to that whole journey. So tell us more about that journey that you've been on.
Sure. Yeah. There really are two major events that defined my journey. The first major event happened in 2012. That event was a severe horse riding accident. That event happened at the Minnesota State Fair during the state fair, on the day before Labor Day. And I was competing in one of the events in the Coliseum, and I collided while running full speed with another horse. And the my horse did not survive, and the other horse broke its jaw. I had gone unconscious and was taken to the hospital. And I had over a year's worth of physical therapy and ended up being diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And I went through some therapy for that and was medicated. I went through a type of therapy where A lot of different soldiers actually overseas go through similar therapy. Uh, if I'm remembering the acronym correctly, I believe it's EMDR therapy. And it was very beneficial, and it really brought me through that. I went through a lot of panic attacks. I went through um, a lot of withdrawing from friends, withdrawing from the community, and eventually life seemed to get back to as normal as it could. But that it's definitely, and I know especially nowadays everyone hates this term, but there was a new normal for me. Back then that meant something very different than what it does now, of course. But I did. I found my new normal, and I definitely learned that um, time doesn't heal everything. That was definitely a myth that I was told over and over again. Just give it time; it'll heal. Your wounds will heal. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't. You just get used to it. You just get used to the pain, and you just learn to live with it. And that's your new normal. And and I did get used to it. And uh, then about 5 years later, my second big event happened, and that really, we'll say, kind of reignited the PTSD that I had had. After it had calmed down, I had gone off my medication, but it's always still kind of there. There are certain things that still trigger events. If I saw like a flashing light that went across my eyes really fast, things like that, or a loud noise that could trigger things. Um, but but I was healthy enough to not be on medication. But in 2017, I had a baby boy, and he came 6 weeks early. And when he came 6 weeks early, he when he was born, he wasn't breathing, and so the NICU nurses had to take him away, get him breathing, and we got to hold him for about 2 seconds before they took him away again and got him intubated and got him hooked up to all sorts of machines. And he was in the NICU for 2 weeks on tubes and feeding tubes, and um, the birthing event was pretty traumatic in and of itself. But not having him home for 2 weeks was hard. We went back and forth, and I lived at the hospital during the day. I tried to rest at night. That's what the nurses said, rest at night because we're taking care of him. And that's kind of unusual for new parents to get to sleep all the way through the night. And so I tried to take advantage of that. After he came home, we were home for a couple of, for, let's see, 3, 4 months before he ended up with RSV. As a preemie, he was susceptible to different viruses and disease, and he ended up pretty sick from RSV and was in the hospital for a week. And that week was probably the most stressful, traumatic week of my life. He didn't sleep, and so I didn't sleep. The crying was nonstop. The doctors in and out, and the nurses in and out, and uh, after a while, my body just started to confuse what day it was. Was it night? Was it day? Had hours gone by? Had minutes gone by? And I kind of went into this survival mode of I don't I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what time it is. And again, my doctors had kind of said at that point in time, that's basically just a survival technique that your body does after not having sleep for that long of a period of time. And eventually, when Parker was allowed to go home, he was better, but no, I wasn't.
Okay.
And so it became apparent that I was not only suffering from PTSD again, but postpartum depression. And I really withdrawed from family, and kind of from everything. There were times where I would sit on the couch and in a different room from the TV even, and I would just sit there all night, just stare off into another room and my husband and Parker would go off and go watch TV or do whatever it is they do with little babies, and I'd
Yeah.
just sit there and kind of stare. Um, and then I started having panic attacks, and I'd have night terrors where uh, I would have dreams essentially that Parker was falling off a cliff or I was dropping him or something like that. And then I would wake up and actually act out the um, the next steps of rescuing him, if you will. I would dive off the bed. I would scream and stand up and jump to go catch him. And then I started doing it while I was wide awake. So I would have like a flash of a thought in my mind that that's what was happening. If he was maybe in his swing, I would all of a sudden just imagine in my mind that he was falling off of his swing, and I would turn around and just dive to the floor to catch him. And then I would look up, and well, there he was, just sitting in his swing, content as can be. So that was very traumatic for me over and over and over again, as I would come to realize, oh, he's just fine. But my mind was having these night terror experiences. So that was very disruptive in my life, obviously. And I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't healthy. I'd lost a lot of weight. I wasn't eating. Um, so at that point in time, I was really struggling, and I hadn't gone to the doctor because I didn't think anything was wrong. I just thought, yes, I just didn't really, I just wanted to ignore it. I just wanted it to not be there. And I think there's a lot of people that just do that. You just ignore it. Oh, it'll get better. It'll just go away on its own. There's nothing wrong with me. It's fine. But it's not fine. I was falling asleep at work. It was definitely affecting my mood. I was snappy. I was rude. I wasn't a nice person. I didn't want to be around people. Um, I was very selfish. I only wanted to do things that benefited myself. And it made me a person that I didn't want to be.
Mhm.
And finally, a friend of mine, she really caught on to it, and she said, you're going to the doctor." And I did. I went to the doctor, started getting medicated, and once I started to get better, I realized how bad I had gotten. Um, and around that time is when I realized that I needed to tell my story, because the more people that can hear my story, the more people that might be encouraged to talk about it with their friends. Um, I don't like to say that mental health is taboo, because I think taboo, um, that word puts a lot of pressure on other people, saying, oh, other people think it's taboo. Oh, I'm not going to talk to you about it because it's taboo. Um, but what I like to say is that the people that are suffering need to be encouraged to talk about it. So
If I could just kind of
yeah.
step in your rate, it almost strikes me that there's, as just a listener here, that there's almost like these stages that you go through, and
Hmm.
maybe toward the latter stage was not even realizing or coming to realize that you needed help. There's
Yeah.
times when we're ill that we know we definitely need to see a physician. But there's
Hmm.
other times where maybe those around us can see it, but we can't see it. And
Yeah.
so getting that help was critical. But then there was that, like you're started to talk about now, that next stage of when you finally were able to get your arms around whatever it was that you were able now to be able to share and to be able to communicate back.
Hmm. Absolutely. I do say that I have said before, the gal that approached me and said you need to go to the doctor. I say with all honesty, she saved my life.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know where my life would be without her having interjected. It was very dark. I definitely wouldn't be a very nice person right now if she hadn't interjected, because I was just heading down a road of being miserable and being angry, and um, my personality had changed, and it wasn't good. It was not something that was enjoyable.
Well, it's great that you had that angel in your life to help you when you needed it. So when you found yourself in a better place, that you were able to communicate. At what point did you think, oh, Toastmasters might be an idea here that I'd like to be able to find a way to share my story
Yeah.
to a different audience. How did that fit in? Were you familiar with that particular club beforehand, or did you
So
did you
I
then go out and research, or
I had heard about Toastmasters before, actually on the radio from Dave Ryan on KDWB.
oh really?
Yeah, he's talked about Toastmasters. I know he's on some Toastmasters club, and he's talked about it. And I kept thinking, I want to learn to be more articulate. I want to learn to um, have the ability to tell my story a little bit better, and I want to learn to just be able to talk about my story and get through it without having either a mental breakdown, uh, but
Right.
also have continuity. And I apologize for my dog barking in the
It's
background.
quite all right. It's life working from home.
Yes,
I totally get
exactly.
it.
He's our alarm system, and he tells us when someone's here.
Yeah. For me, I've got landscapers that go by the window every once in a while. I'm just thankful they haven't decided to go back this morning, so that would
Yeah.
shut down the conversation right now. But
Yep, yep. Well, and that's why I always wear my headset so that hopefully you can still hear me.
yeah, no, not a problem. So
Uh,
you reached out, you found out about this club, and
yeah.
how long
Yep.
ago was that?
It's I have to think about it because I think this is my third year in the club
Your
now.
third year. Well,
I
that's
think
great.
so. So it had to, it wasn't long after I was definitely still in the treatment phase of my
Mhm.
illness when I joined. Um, and I had sort of developed my own hashtags at the time, and I know that that was definitely useful for me. And I remember doing some speeches right away that I said I always talking about hashtag talk about it. And when I said hashtag talk about it, I wasn't just saying talk about it from my perspective as a quote unquote victim, but it was talk about it if you know somebody, talk about it if you don't know somebody. If the more people talk about it, the more comfortable it is. When you have a friend that's broken a leg, you don't just walk up to them and ignore that ailment. You would say, "Hey, how's your leg feeling?" And this should be no different. Hey, how you feeling? How's that postpartum doing? How's your PTSD? How's your treatment going? It really should be no different than any other illness.
Yeah,
And Toastmasters really helped me articulate those thoughts better, and I was so happy to find such a supportive group in Hutchinson Toastmasters too. When I looked up Toastmasters after, of course, just remembering that they existed from the radio, I just searched what's the closest club to me, and there they were, and it really ended up being the perfect fit.
you're right. I think for many of us that have been involved in Toastmasters, we found the benefit of having sort of that consistent audience that we
Hmm.
can relate to. Certainly when we were meeting in person, there was the very real aspect of being able to close the door. Whatever was talked about in the meeting room stayed there. These are people that we all got to know each other's stories. And these were people that would be able to tell us when we did do our speeches, what resonated, what didn't resonate, how could we do it better to tell our stories. And so that was that something that you found as well, the benefit of having that
Oh,
audience?
absolutely. There was another hashtag that I still use to this day. It was hashtag be the one you want to chase.
Okay.
And that's something that I was told by several members that really resonated with them. And I, to this day, am always encouraging people to just remember that, yeah, sure, there's always going to be people out there they're going to be smarter than you, they're going to be funnier than you, they're probably going to be prettier than you, they might have nicer clothes, they might have a nicer house, but you don't have to be constantly chasing people like that. You can just be those people. If you have somebody in mind that you're wanting to chase because they have your dream job, they have a better you think that they are more talented than you in one certain way, you can go out and fine tune your skills. You just have to find that motivation, and you can be that person. You can be whoever you want to be.
Right.
And this situation has really taught me that I don't have to be that miserable person. I don't have to be stuck in a dark hole. I
Right.
can be
I think that's
somebody
another
that
way
can
of,
tell my story.
yeah, I think that's another way of saying it helps us find our voice. You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it's, Toastmasters is not about trying to form fit ourselves or our voices into some prescribed format. It's teaching us how to discover our own voice and to be able
Correct.
to communicate that in the most effective way. But you know,
Exactly.
Ray, that's a great segue to what I always like to finish up my conversations with. You know, that message out to other Toastmasters, or maybe even the person out there that is kind of on the line. You mentioned Dave Ryan with KDWB. That's great. I don't know if that he talked about what it was that kept drawing him back, but I think we'd all be interested in knowing um, what it is that you have found of greatest value to you, and what would you like to tell the rest of us?
Yeah, that's great. You know, I think the thing that's given me the most value is having this support system around me that truly wants me to succeed in every aspect of my life. And as I'm doing this podcast in my head, I've already started counting my gonnas, my you knows, my so's, and and, and it's fine. Yes, we can all be better speakers. We can all sit and and count those little marks. But in the grand scheme of things, it fine tunes our skills. We're not we're not meant to be perfect. When we go on stage and speak, nobody wants to hear a robot speak, but they also don't want to hear junk speakers either. So it's all about finding what you said earlier, finding your voice. And I think that that's been the greatest benefit to me is finding out what works best for me and having that constant audience. And they've watched me grow through these last couple of years.
Mhm.
And I love having them give me feedback throughout my journey and say, hey, I love watching you grow throughout these last few years. Let's tweak this a little bit. Let's tweak that a little bit. It's been great.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to end our conversation today. To having your fellow members tell you that, hey, we've seen your growth,
Mhm.
and maybe it's a different way of saying we like being with you, and we really like having you part of our group, and we're all getting something from it. So
Sure.
that's great. Well, Ray, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. It's just an amazing story, and I wish you and your club the very best this year.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, bye now.
Bye bye.